Hi guys, it's Mr. Jackson with Blanket, here to read chapter 24 of Everlost by Neal Shusterman. And also last time we finished part 3, so we are also now starting part 4. Part 4, 1,000 Souls. Chapter 24, Nick's Journey. Over a treacherous bridge and across the entire breadth of Brooklyn, Nick marched from Rockaway Point to Manhattan. He had no way of knowing that even as he crossed that first bridge, Allie was being chimed by the McGill. His mission was clear, but by no means simple. Get help. More specifically, get help from Mary. That was the hard part because Allie had already told him how Mary refused to put her children at risk before. As much as it hurt Nick that Mary chose to leave him in a barrel, he admitted the selflessness it implied. Her motto wasn't leave no child behind. It was put no child in danger. It made getting help from her tricky. Nick encountered no afterlights on his trek toward Mary's domain. Certainly, there were many dead spots on the way, and perhaps there were afterlights hiding here and there, but he wasn't looking for them. He was single-minded. He marched down the center of Flatbush Avenue, cars and pedestrians passing through him. Don't walk down the center of Flatbush. Unlike Allie, he had no skill for connecting with the living world, and he found that the more he ignored that world, the more it slipped into shadow. The living world was as insubstantial to him as beams of light from a movie projector, and the living themselves were like the movie on the screen, only important if he chose to watch. He could see how Mary had come to see Everlost as the real world, the true world. It would be easy to trick himself into believing the same thing, but did he want to do that? For a moment, he chose to focus on the movie of the living. A child and a mother crossing a street to catch a bus, an old woman taking her time, and a cabbie who honked at her, only to get a rap on the hood from her cane. It made Nick laugh. Even if he was not part of it, that world was charged with a vibrant spark that Everlost did not have. No, the living world could not be dismissed or ignored. And for the first time, he began to wonder if perhaps Mary's disregard for the living world was nothing more than envy. As he neared Manhattan, with his memory of a heart began to pound in anticipation. What would Mary do when she saw him? Would she be reserved and dignified? Would she scold him for having left her in the first place? He knew he still had feelings for her that could not be destroyed by barrel or beast. But did she have any real feelings toward him? He had thought to learn a skill from the haunter, a skill Mary could use. Nick had no new skills to offer her, but he had been changed. He was fearless, or if not truly fearless, then at least no longer fearful. By the time he got to Manhattan, he was running, and he didn't stop until he reached her towers. Mary knew something must be horribly wrong. She knew because of the look of anguish on Very's face. She'd never seen him look so bleak. Very, what is it? What's happened? He's back, was all Very said. Then he shuffled away, hanging his head low in a dejected defeat she didn't quite understand. Before she could ask him anything else, she saw someone she thought she'd never see again standing in her doorway. Nick? Hi, Mary. There was more chocolate on his face now than before. As with many afterlights, changes were not always the desired ones. But Mary didn't care because he was here, and beneath the chocolate there was a smile just for her. It was rare that Mary lost herself, but this was a rare occasion where the control and poise she prided herself on flew out the window. She ran to Nick and hugged him tightly, not wanting to let him go. It was only now, in this moment, that Mary realized the fondness she had felt for him was more than that. It was love, something she had not felt in all her years in Everlost. It had been easier to suppress it when she thought he was lost, but now the emotion came in a wellspring, and she kissed him, giving herself over to the heady smell and rich taste of milk chocolate. Nick was not expecting this. Maybe in his wildest dreams, but his wildest dreams had a tendency to not come true. For a moment, he found himself going limp, like an opossum playing dead, before finally putting his arms around her waist and returning the embrace. It occurred to Nick that since they didn't actually have to breathe, they could stay like that forever. If it was inevitable for afterlights to lock themselves in ruts, this was a rut he could handle. But the moment ended, as such moments do, and Mary took a step back, regarding her composure. "Wow," said Nick. "I guess you missed me." "I thought I lost you," Mary said. "Can you ever forgive me for not coming after you? Do you understand why I couldn't?" Nick found himself slow to answer. He understood, but that didn't mean he could completely forgive it. "I won't talk about it if you won't," Nick said, and left it at that. "How did you escape?" Mary asked. "It's a long story, but that's not important. I need your help." Nick sat her down and told her about the McGill, his ghost ship, and his cargo of afterlights. "I know you never really believed in the McGill." "No," said Mary. "I've always known he existed. But like the Haunter, he kept away. Allie's figured out a way to defeat him." "Allie?" Nick could hear the disdain in her voice. "Allie's a very foolish girl. She's learned nothing from what happened with the Haunter, has she?" "I believe her," Nick said. "No matter what you think of her, she's smart. When I left, she practically had the McGill eating out of her hand." Mary sighed. "So then, what does she want me to do?" This was the hard part. Nick knew he had to sell this. And sell it right. "She wants you to bring your kids to Atlantic City. It'll take all of them to fight the McGill." Mary shook her head. "No, I can't do that. I won't put my children in danger." "Allie says there's a powerful gang there, a gang that defeated him before, so we won't be alone." "She doesn't know what she's talking about." "Then all the more reason to help her if you know things she doesn't." And when Mary didn't say anything more, Nick put his cards on the table. If you don't help, then I'll go there without you." "That," said Mary, slumped in a chair in the corner, "is the best idea I've heard yet." They both ignored him. "The McGill will destroy you," Mary said. "You can't fight him." "You're probably right. But if you won't help, I'll have no choice but to go alone." Mary turned away and pounded a fist against a window. Nick couldn't tell if she was angry at him or herself. I can't. Nick was not bluffing, and soon Mary would realize that. He knew his feelings for her were strong, but he also knew that some things were stronger. I love you, Mary, he said, but there are things I have to do, even if you won't. And he turned to leave. She called to him before he reached the door. Nick had truly thought she wouldn't because, in his experience, when Mary had made up her mind, the case was closed. But maybe she was changing too. I won't put my children in danger, she said again, fiddling nervously with the locket around her neck. But I can't leave 1,000 children in the McGill's hands either, so I'll go with you. What? Said Mary. Nick wasn't expecting that either, but that won't help. We need an army to fight the McGill. But apparently, Mary knew better, as Mary always did. Mary had a secret cache of clout that ran deeper than anyone knew. In other words, she could get her hands on things that most afterlights could only dream about. Were they able to dream? Today, she had arranged luxury transportation, a ghost train out of Penn Station. She did not say goodbye to the children because she didn't want to worry them. She left Meadow in charge, and Barry, who refused to be left behind, became a third member of their traveling party. Do you think I'm going to let you take all the glory? Barry told Nick as the three of them trudged uptown. One way or another, I'm going to end up on top. Just see if I don't. Personally, said Nick, I think you'd look best hanging upside down by your ankles. Barry sneered at him. You've got more chocolate on your mouth than ever. Pretty soon, it'll cover your whole stupid face. Nick shrugged. Mary doesn't seem to mind. Nick suspected that if Barry had had his violin, he would have kabonged him over the head. Will you two stop, chided Mary. We're supposed to fight the McGill, not each other. Actually, Nick found himself enjoying his bickering with Barry, maybe because he had finally had the upper hand. It was dusk by the time they reached the old Penn Station, a glorious stone-faced, glass-domed building that had been torn down half a century ago, in the questionable name of progress, and replaced with a miserable underground rat warren beneath Madison Square Garden. The new Penn Station was generally considered the ugliest train station in Western civilization, but luckily, the old Penn persisted in Everlost. Only out of its indignation. Nick was duly impressed, and also impressed that Mary was willing to ride a train, considering the nature of her death. As for the conductor, he was an old friend of Mary's, a 9-year-old afterlight who called himself Choo Choo Charlie. In life, he was obsessed with model trains, and so to him, Old Penn Station, with its many ghost trains, was as good as making it to heaven. I can't take you to Atlantic City, he told them, on account of there's no dead tracks down there. I can get you halfway, though. Is that okay? Can you get us as far as Lakehurst? Mary asked. I have a friend there who can take us the rest of the way. Then, with Charlie in the engine, the ghost train lit out on the memory of tracks, heading for New Jersey. They arrived in Lakehurst a few hours later, but it took the rest of the night to seek out Mary's friend, a finder named Speedo. After meeting him, Nick decided he preferred a chocolate eternity to an eternity in a wet bathing suit. Nick figured Speedo must have been a pretty good finder, though, because he had himself a late model Jaguar. It's a sweet ride, he told them. as he drove them around the dead roads of the old Naval Air Station, showing the car off. But it can only go on roads that don't exist anymore. Do you know how hard those are to find? Then he threw an accusing look at Mary. You never told me about that when you gave me the car. You never asked. Mary smirked. Speedo told them it would take weeks to navigate the dead road course to all the way to Atlantic City. But Mary didn't seem concerned. Actually, she said, it's your other sweet ride that I'm interested in. Yeah, I thought you'd say that, said Speedo, as they pulled into a huge airfield tarmac. But I drive. When Nick saw the ride that they were talking about, even in his amazement, he had to smile. Miss Mary Hightower didn't travel often, but when she did, she sure knew how to travel in style. So that was chapter 24. Time for some questions. First, in the very beginning it said of Mary, her motto wasn't leave no child behind. It was put no child in danger. So I want to ask you, which do you think is better? Do you think it's better to leave no child behind, meaning save everyone, even if it means putting people at a lot of risk to do so? Or do you think it's better to keep everyone safe, but not necessarily try to save someone if it would put people in danger? Next question. It said there that as Nick was walking to go find Mary, he walked down the center of Flatbush Avenue. Now, most of you guys have been on Flatbush Avenue and know that it's a very, very busy road. So I want to ask, is that a good idea to walk down the center of Flatbush Avenue, or really any busy road? Why or why not? And then finally, at the end of the chapter, we see Speedo has really the fancy Jaguar that he got from Mary. But it's going to take a really, really long time to get where they're going with the Jaguar. And Mary says that she wants to take Speedo's other like sweet ride, as she calls it. But then they don't tell us at the end what the sweet ride is. So what do you think that sweet ride is going to be? Do you think it's going to be like a car, an airplane, a boat, a truck, a train? What do you think that other sweet ride is going to be? Yeah, so that's it. Hope everybody had a really good weekend. Miss you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.